all of this?
Not only did I argue the judge, if you saw all of the legal briefs that I filed, you'd just be astounded.
I actually am.
And the judge didn't hear. The judge did not hear even one of them after I went in to compel them to produce a disclosure on the records of the witnesses. I'd hired an investigator. I'd also hired an attorney.
Right.
To handle it all. Because that's what people say. Oh, get an attorney. I was like, I gave the guy, I went and met with him. Let's just for a traffic ticket. I said, what do you want? Oh, $100,000. I said, okay, here's the money. Take care of it. And then I went and did about $1,500 worth of investigation work and found all this other stuff out about these guys. All these records that were out there.
Right.
And then I started trying to work with the city, like, hey, you guys have made a mistake. It's like, this guy's uninsured. These people lied. They rode home to get all this stuff. It's like, why are you going through with all of this? And not only were they going through with it, regardless, the officer and the prosecution and the city never charged that guy who ran into me for not being insured. As a pattern, the fifth or sixth time, they never charged him for lying about being insured, which he was not, as a pattern, with 3 previous convictions.
He wasn't charged with failure to maintain control.
He was not charged with a goddamn thing. Zero, zippo, nada. And then he moved from Orem, Utah to South Salt Lake City as an act of harboring to protect him while this case went on.
Wow.
It's harboring. So my accusations, I don't have an allegation anymore, they're accusations, is that these people under color of state law aided and abetted in violation of federal immigration law under United States Code Title 8, Section 1324, harboring for illegal purposes. Somebody who had a sustained, decade-long criminal history of falsifying information to law enforcement using document fraud, identity theft because he had more than one social security number, document fraud upon the courts because there was multiple dates of birth and multiple aliases, multiple citations that he was never convicted for because they couldn't find him because he had used aliases or dates of birth that were not consistent with another set of documents that he may have carried at this particular time.
Right.
That's how much crap it was. Why would you not prosecute someone like that? Do you know why? It's because if you were worried about being sued and you wanted to tip the scales of the balance of justice and create the perception that only I was at fault, you wouldn't find the other person at fault. You would, for the things that he did. It's not a matter of if I did run a red light or didn't run a red light. It's that I had the right of redress, which is underpinned by the equal protection of the laws and due process. Those things were denied because part of equal protection is that he did these things, magnitudes more severe crimes, felonies.
Absolutely.
Perjured himself as well in the justice court. On the record, a digital audio recording, which I have, I can share this with you, that was then provided back to the city before I went to the appeal, the trial. When you have an appeal case called a trial de novo or a new trial, before I went to the appeal trial, extracted the testimony of both of these people, gave it to the city. Both of your witnesses committed perjury. Why are you not doing anything about this? It's because if you don't convict the people of crimes, then they don't look like they're criminals. Isn't that right?
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what occurred. And they did this because the officer involved was the brother of the mayor who was seeking re-election. and he fucked up. So when I complained about the city, she protected him.
Right.
And how could she protect him best? With a prosecution firm relying upon the $16,000 a month contract with the mayor to protect their interests. Because by then, I had filed so much information into the district court, including a copy of their contract. I paid in clause of what they were responsible for and how they failed in the disclosure because they hadn't provided it to me. And then the same city, this is where it even gets weirder, before they disclosed to me the records of conviction that were in different dates of birth and different aliases on the same guy that they gave me, okay, they had already gone out and hired another $500 an hour law firm to protect them in the prosecution of me over a $100 traffic infraction.
Yeah, does
that make sense?
No.
That's bizarre.
Very.
Then it turns out, remember how I ranted on and on about the Bundys? I'm not a big Bundy fan. I live in Utah.
I got you.
You know, I'm not, this is not, what those guys did, I won't even go into the whole Bundy thing. I'm not a Bundy fan at all.
You dropped a little, I mean, it was sort of like wow, it was a truth bomb. I mean, there was a lot there to take in, but yeah, I remember the but yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't like the Bundys even more because I had other issues in the state that when I came back from Afghanistan, I couldn't get any help. I couldn't get any help from my elected leaders while they were trying to protect the Bundys. I'm somebody who went over and paid to go over there as a disabled veteran. I was disgusted. It was like, you will help out, you will go out of your way to help out people who have been living in our goddamn state. But you can't help me out as your direct constituent who just came back from Afghanistan. That's why I even hate the Bundys even more. And there's other reasons. But the city, in this time that everything went south for me, was between July and November, because December 2nd, you know, there's no, so at the end of November, there's December, so I have a trial on December 2nd, and the attorney they bring on leaves in November. They bring on an attorney who was the brother of Marcus R. Mumford, who represented the Bundys in Oregon.
Gotcha.
They bring him on as a fact. I don't know if I think it's a doc, I think it's an email, okay? And in that email are all these attachments. And one of the attachments is a record from the South Salt Lake City Council of Boone Creswell introducing Bradley Mumford. I think it was on the minutes of the 24th of August of 2016, page 3 or 4. I think it's page 3, line item 4. They brought Bradley in, but they bring in a guy who's the brother of the people who represents the Bundys, okay, who have worked at the Mumford Law Firm to do what in South Salt Lake City in a part-time capacity? Prosecute property cases. Mm-hmm. Can anything be more incongruent and oxymoronic than that?
Right.
You're the brother of the guy representing the Bundys, but you're prosecuting property cases, supposedly, in South Salt Lake City. Well, I think one of the people they prosecuted was the mayor's former rival.
All right.
They also shut his property down. They're corrupt. They have a history of corruption. I know that because a friend of mine is the former chief of police over there. They're notorious for corruption at South Salt Lake.
Have you discussed this with him? I mean, has he given you any advice or any direction in what to do? They
don't know what to do. Things don't operate the same here.
Right.
People, I hate to say that, but they don't. You know, and that was one of the things. It's like, even the case even gets weirder.
Yeah, I mean, it does.
Here's how weird the case is. They suborned the perjury of 2 illegal aliens. They allowed, this prosecution allowed this driver number 2, who was given a ticket in one name, okay, to then swear in on a witness stand and be a witness against me under oath. You know what evidence is in a case? Evidence is anything that's admitted, that the judge allows to be admitted without objection or overcoming an objection.
Right.
It's also all of the statements that are made under oath. That's what evidence is. That's why when you have a conversation with someone on the phone, that's not evidence, that's hearsay.
Correct. Evidence
is it's something that's like made on the record, which is in a court of law under oath of a judge. Like you've taken an oath. So that's how you get evidence against people. And that's how the decisions are made in a case. If you can't get evidence in, then you're not going to prevail. Or if you can get evidence in, you can load the scales of justice. So in this particular case, they allowed driver number 2 to testify after he was sworn in under the name that he was cited in for driving without a license, ever obtaining a license. Okay. 6 days later, in his own prosecution for what he did, driving without a license, the same prosecution in the same court. I wasn't a part of that. I've got a copy of that. It was called a Rule 902, one of the rules of evidence. Rule 902B2 or something. It's like evidence that you receive from the court that is a public record that is self-authenticated. Or if it's notarized, it's even better. I had a notarized copy of the docket from his prosecution 6 days later. And he swears in under oath in a different name. A different name.
And nobody caught that.
No, I did catch it.
Well, you did, but...
And I gave a copy of it to the prosecution. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. This was completely rigged.
Yeah.
And prosecutors know that overcoming... it's like they call them malicious prosecution. You can't sue for malicious prosecution unless you win.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't win, it means everything that they did to you, even if it's illegal, is immune.
Mm-hmm.
Only something that a prosecutor does outside of the courtroom itself, anything in his investigative capacity, conversations, speaking with other people, like caught on record, those are the only things that aren't immune. And then it has a qualified immunity, and you have to find a way to puncture the qualified immunity. So if you don't win, you're fucked.
Do you have a legal background? I mean, you are you're very well versed in this. Did you come by this?
I've been fighting these people.
Okay.
10 years.
Okay, so you've earned your degree. Then you've earned your degree. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not an attorney. I guess you call it someone who's a shithouse attorney or whatever. But I understand enough about the law.
Yeah.
I understand that I can go and read it and try to figure it out. And a lot of the times people don't realize, you know what attorneys are? They're just somebody with a degree and an opinion.
Right.
You go to the judge, only something that's adjudicated in a court of law can be a precedent or, that's adjudicated, an order or something. That's what the law, that's really what the law is. Attorneys have opinions about the law. He's got to go into court and enforce it. Right. Get it to go their way. So... No, I'm not an attorney.
Okay.
Sorry, there was no way they would allow me to win. And that's not all. I have the recording of this, too. Okay? Of all these recordings. I'm in that courthouse, okay? And I'm representing myself. And I actually had an attorney, but I fired him because, he was intimidated by this group of people. And he represented he would take the case to trial. And the first time that we went to a hearing, he told the prosecutor I was going to take a plea in advance. And I said, no. We never talked about that. You were paid under contract to represent me at trial.
Right. Yeah.
And he goes, no, we're going to take a plea in advance. And it went round and round outside the courtroom until he was fired. And that's why I represented myself. That was never the intention. And the guy even gave me back half of my money. That's how wrong he was.
I mean,
attorneys don't generally give you your money back.
No, they don't. That's not usually how it works. No.